Right. So we're here with Mike Duong, who's the managing director of Amway Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, and Indonesia. So, Mike, tell us about yourself.
Hey, Ivana, how are you?
I'm
Well, first off, let me just tell you, I'm so excited. This is my first podcast ever. So I've always dreamt of doing a podcast. And so I'm very, very excited. So thank you for having me here and thank you for doing this.
Oh, happy that be with us.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So so you were asking me about my health journey, right?
Yes.
So I would say my health journey, probably I didn't even subconsciously know it. So like my mom's side, for example, has diabetes. And it was just growing up when I grew up, it was just sort of accepted. They have diabetes. It's something that we have. It's a genetic issue. It's a family history. You're going to have diabetes. But even then, as a teenager and in my 20s and 30s, I never thought about it. I never thought to maybe take action on it. So maybe subconsciously, I've always thought about health because of the family history, but I didn't really know how to do it or what to do. And I think through life, okay, then you want to, in your 20s, you want to look good, you want to kind of be active, be able to play sports. So kind of that was the priority. And I think it's only sort of when I joined Amway, and being that Amway is a health and wellness company and we sell supplements, then I started to take the supplements. And that was sort of the first step of now moving into maybe a different thought process, not just working out, but maybe to take care of your health. But it was sort of only the last few years, especially with COVID, that we were all sort of stuck inside. We're stuck in our house and we had to find new ways to do things, that I really started to think about my health in a new and different way and start to think about both diet, right? Because I do intermittent fasting. That's huge in my life. I love the mornings where I skip breakfast, but then I will have a warm water along with lemon and maybe apple cider vinegar. And then I book a puasa at around noon. And I start thinking, okay, how do I really take advantage of this and make it part of my life and still find ways to enjoy what I eat, enjoy what I do? So I would say it's a lifelong subconscious journey,
Right.
but I think it's only in the last few years that I really take ownership of it.
So, would you say that COVID was the trigger, that specific moment that triggered your decision to prioritize your health, or was there anything else before that?
I think definitely COVID, when you're stuck at home and we're just talking about health for everybody, you said, okay, well, instead of just talking about health and taking care of everybody and saying, okay, let's make sure that the frontliners get the support they need. Let's make sure our customers get the support you need. Then you kind of looked at your own self and you're like, well, I'm kind of stressed. I'm stuck at home. It's just, right, the immediate family, we're all sharing the same bandwidth, right, as far as because their kids had to go to school, we're all stuck at home, right? People want to, during their downtime, maybe watch something else. And it's like, but is this healthy? Is this right? And we can't go outside. And so, yeah, it definitely, I think, was a major trigger. And then once you sort of adopted a lifestyle, then I think it allowed me to carry it forward into sort of today. So I never lost that mindset of how do you prioritize your health in a way that doesn't feel like you've over prioritized your health. You know what I mean? Not to a point where you feel like, okay, I got to be a vegetarian, or I got to, be calorie restrictive, or I got to go work out at the gym 5 days a week and do it right. So I do it.
Oh, your first step.
Yeah. It's part of my life, but it's not, it's not my entire life.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, now what role did nutrition and exercise play in this when you first started?
Yeah. So, we live in an apartment. It's a 3-bedroom apartment, and literally, right, just like everybody else, we couldn't go to the common area. There's no rooftop. There's no sort of swimming pool downstairs that you can go to. So everything was shut off. We couldn't even go outside, remember?
Yeah.
And so the only place is you either have to find a place inside the house, right? Probably in front of the TV to maybe watch some workout videos on YouTube. Or maybe if you're lucky, you had a little balcony. So I remember being on the balcony as a way to kind of get out some fresh air, being on our own little balcony. Probably a quarter the size of this studio.
You planted some herbs at the time.
I planted herbs. Yep. Did all that just because you wanted sort of a sense of, okay, nature, a sense of normalcy. And so literally I would run in place on the balcony just to kind of feel like, okay,
You're running
I'm running outside.
outside.
I've got nature, right? All
Fresh
these little
air,
tricks
yeah.
you do to kind of keep sane. So I think that's when I prioritized. And then when you kind of incorporate that with, okay, you have more time to not worry about maybe travel as much, or so then you kind of said, okay, let me find a way to incorporate it. So I think that's where I started kind of incorporating all the healthier habits and then carrying it forward.
Right. I'm guessing what you planted was also extra fiber for your diet. And we talk about the role of your diet
Yes.
and the role of the gut microbiome
Sure.
in that diet.
Yeah.
So how did you first learn about this in?
So I'll be honest with you. I started out when one was just incorporating more into being stuck at home, trying to incorporate some exercise. That was sort of the first incorporation. Two, because you're home, you probably had a better eating habit than if you're always going out.
There's
and
more
you-
control.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
control. You're right. You're going out, cari makan, then you go out party late at night, right? But there's also a danger because when you're at home, it's easy to go to the refrigerator and right in between meetings, in between right online phone calls, and just throughout the day, or you're sitting and watching things. It's like, okay, go to the refrigerator, go to the refrigerator. So in some ways, you still have to be pretty disciplined when you're at home too. But I think in terms of first was sort of just starting that behavior of, okay, let's incorporate first a little more activity because you're stuck at home. Second was then, okay, thinking about, okay, let's be a little healthier because you can be have your meals a little more well thought out.
Right.
And then when it comes to the gut microbiome, well, that was sort of a new one because I never thought about the gut microbiome. Candidly speaking, I think it was only during COVID and the company started saying, okay, what is the latest science to really help people in terms of health? And we met with the management team, we met with all the scientists in the company, and they kind of said, well, actually, probably the most powerful thing nowadays, and the science really says our gut and our gut microbiome is actually one of the most powerful things we can unlock to really improve our health. And I guess the way I thought about that was like, okay, but maybe the gut's it's there just to process the food we eat. And it's just to help us kind of have good movement. And so, I never thought about it as far as actually being, if you think about that though, everything we consume, good or bad, has to go through our gut. It gets processed through our gut. So whether you're eating, right, the most healthy protein salad or the most healthy food, of most nutritious food, if your gut isn't really designed or prepared to process it right, you might as well not be eating it.
It won't absorb the nutrients.
It won't absorb the nutrients. I mean, or even to the point where there's studies where if your body and your gut is able to maybe handle bad food, you can actually, right, take occasionally, right, bad food, and your body is still able to handle it right. So that was the first study. It's like, okay, how do we help people lose weight or take the first step? And it turned out, wow. And then we kind of kept on looking into it. And then, the scientists came and said, actually, it's more than just weight. It's everything else. It's your brain health. It's your happiness. It's the serotonin. It's the tryptophan for sleep. It's all these other hormones and enzymes
Your
and
skin.
everything. They said, it's connected to our gut. And you kind of go, that's true. I mean, again, maybe it's something that some people already knew. Right. But I don't think a lot of us knew, and I don't think a lot of us knew the true science behind it. I think it's just more, how do you take care of, like you said, acne or breakout? Yeah. Oh, you should wash your face more. Well, that's true. That's the surface. But if you want to actually help clean your body and get rid of the toxins and kind of go to the root cause, address your gut health, and then your skin complexion, your texture, your elasticity, your moisture will be better. And then, of course, do the skin nutrition.
I mean, it goes back to how the body's designed to repair itself.
Your body is where sort of it all starts, and your gut is where it all starts. I mean, even to your heart and other things. Again, it just sort of opened my mind to how powerful our gut is in terms of this.
So what dietary changes did you make?
So the dietary change, one is, I mentioned the 16-8. So I love the 16-8 because one, I think our body, otherwise we eat too often and our body is still processing food. And then if you have too much food, then your body, there's two issues. One is then it stores the excess food in terms of fat, Or two, when you have too much food too often, you create the sugar spikes. Too much sugar, then you actually then over time develop insulin resistance, which then creates a vicious cycle. So when you kind of eat too often, it creates that issue. And of course, then when you eat, you got processed foods, you got a lot of preservatives, you got all these other bad factors. So the first thing I did was sort of think about, okay, how do I did the 16-8. And then I said, okay, well, how do I then, when I have my body's then ready to eat, how do I make sure I prepare it the right way? It's kind of like thinking about this, right? If you have not done something and all of a sudden the first thing you do is start to try to run a marathon, right? Tomorrow morning, say, okay, I'm going to wake up now. I haven't done anything for the last 16 years or the last 16 hours. I'm going to go run a marathon. And so that's kind of what people kind of think. So instead of that, when I buka puasa, right, break my fast, the first thing I do is I do protein, and then I make sure probiotic, and then I have fiber as a way to kind of prepare my body. And even in the morning, as I'm sort of having my fast, there's water. I keep hydrated, so I have water. And then when I buka puasa, as I mentioned, right, protein, probiotic, and fiber. And then 30 minutes afterwards, then I'll start with vegetables, and then I'll have protein, either ayam, ikan, or whatever I love. Slowly introduce each sort of food category, and then I'll have my carbs, either the nasi or the wonton mee or all the things. And then at the end, I'll still have my favorite, right, chenda or right, ABC or whatever it might be, bubur cha-cha. So I love the food, and what I also like about this is still love your food, because otherwise you feel like you're suffering. You feel like you're on a constant diet, and you feel like, oh my gosh, when is this going to be over? When do I end? You still eat everything you love. So that way you can enjoy life, you can enjoy your friends, you go out, and nobody's like, okay, here's Mike, he's just going to have a salad. That's all he's ever going to eat. You go out and you enjoy satay, whatever it is, and then just walk afterwards. So what I like about this is it still allows us to enjoy Malaysian food or whatever it might be your favorite. Korean food,
So what are
Japanese.
your favorites?
So I love...
what can't you say no to?
What can't I say no to? Vietnamese food I love. One, because I love the aroma and the smell and the flavors.
And the fresh ingredients.
The fresh ingredients, the herbs, all that stuff. That's number one probably on my list. I would say Japanese or Korean are kind of in that second place because my kids love it too, udon and everything else. And then, of course, all the Malaysian foods I mentioned earlier, right? The nasi lemak, the cendol, as I mentioned again, durian, all those things, right? That's what I love about here in Malaysia, where you have a mixture of everything. Nasi kanda, you name it, right? Actually, my favorite is roti canai with some curry chicken and a cup of Dietary goreng manis. That's actually for around 11 or 12 o'clock. That's
we're getting a sense of balance here.
Yes.
But I do want to know, what does a cheat day look like for you? Because we all have cheat days.
I don't have a cheat day.
You don't have a cheat day.
No, because all right, the point is that diet. I don't feel like I have to have a non-cheat day and a cheat day, right?
So you have a cheat hour.
Yeah, that's the thing. I
go.
think my cheat hour is if I maybe only have, because of work or other things, I might only fast maybe 14 hours or 13 hours because of whatever reason. Maybe it was a late night, and so we're out, we're having a late supper, and I don't want to. I'll still be on a social context, and then the next day, for whatever reason, I maybe can't do the 16. But there's days I go 18, right?
But I think that's also important in the sense that you take the pressure off of yourself.
Correct.
And so it doesn't feel like it's an unsustainable plan.
Yeah. I never feel like this controls my life.
Right.
I feel like my life is my life, and I've incorporated ways or things into it to be able to still do everything we love.
Yep.
Right? I think that's the secret,
And
right?
still maintain control.
Yeah. You never want to make it so strict, so rigid that you feel like, okay, I have to be like that. And then, because if you can't achieve it, you feel like you failed.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the thing about working out, right? If your goal is you have to work out every day, guess what? Life gets in the way sometimes.
It does.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, your kids are sick. All right, you come home and okay, you have a late supper, or maybe you have to do some work and then you stay up late, and then you're like, oh, I'll work out in the morning.
And it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. Whether because, right, one, because you're super tired, or
Yeah.
two, right, something happened with your family or your kids,
Mhm.
and then you kind of go, okay, I missed out the morning.
Right.
It's like, okay, I'll work out at lunch. Well, guess what? You might have work, you might have a meeting, so now you miss lunch workout. And then you say, okay, I'll move it to the afternoon after work. At 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., I'll go from work and I'll go straight to the gym and I'll work out. You're tired.
It
You
rains.
miss it. It rains.
You get
there's
home at
traffic,
9, right?
right? Your kids call, or your wife calls, or your husband
Right.
calls. So life gets in the way. And so then you kind of beat yourself up, because throughout that time, every moment you kept on saying, okay, the next opportunity, I'll do it. The next opportunity, I do it. And then it creates a vicious cycle where now not only did you feel like you constantly failed throughout your day, right? You beat yourself up.
Yeah.
And so whether you think about your diet or you think about working out, you should find a way that allows you want to still have consistency, but you don't want to have the strictness that you always feel like you're setting yourself up for failure.
A lot of it is a mental factor. So how would you overcome these psychological challenges?
I think it's what we talked about, right? Don't
be so hard on yourself.
be so hard on yourself,
Right.
first of all.
Okay.
Right? This is a lifelong journey. If you're looking, okay, hey, I got to lose 10 kg or I got to look like this, I think you're setting yourself up for
failure. Yeah.
I think have a goal. The goal is to live healthier. The goal is to incorporate it into your life, to make small steps. So you can constantly celebrate successes
Right.
and not create such a huge issue. Yeah? So I think that's number one. And I think as part of that, then that way, again, you never feel like you're constantly on a diet and you say, okay, I can't wait. Okay, I can't wait to achieve that goal and then I can stop.
Yeah.
There is no stop.
There's no
This
stop.
is just life.
Right.
And you enjoy life and you just incorporate these things into your life so you can enjoy it and live longer. Right? That's the goal. And so that way, like I said, you asked me, well, I never feel like I gave up food. I mentioned all the foods I love. I never felt like I said, okay, well, how many calories did I hit already today? Say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't have that because it's beyond my calorie.
Right.
It's like, okay, I'm sorry, I got to go to the gym now. I go to the gym purely for joy. I eat for joy. I don't eat because it's part of my restriction. I eat for joy. I go to the gym for joy. I try to live life, right, for the health, but also for the happiness.
So what do you do when you're in the gym? And you mentioned playing sports before as well.
So I love volleyball. That was sort of my first interest or hobby. I love playing volleyball. It's still something I love to do. I wish I could still jump and kind of have the hops and do the blocks. But I love beach volleyball in particular because I love being outdoors and the environment. And with beach volleyball, I like the 2-on-2 because I like it that you have a partner. Sometimes if you have 3 people, that's fine. Because then there's, you're talking with another person or 2 other people, and you have to have the communication. You're relying upon the other person, right? So what I love about sports, what I loved about volleyball was, right, it's not just yourself. You do an action. You need your other player or team member to sort of support you, and you kind of go back and forth. And of course, there's the competition.
Right.
So volleyball, I love, but I also love running. And that's more personal, and I think that's more about setting your own goal. Some people might run for competitions, which is fantastic and great. I run purely just for my own joy and enjoyment. So, right, it's against me, against myself. It's my time, my goal, right?
Your personal best.
Yeah, and I love that feeling afterwards, the adrenaline, but then it's like...
The runner's high.
Yeah, yes, I love the runner's high, but just, I don't think I ever get to the point where I will always achieve, but just knowing that if you can run 1 km or 5 km, right, there's a joy to it when I do it. If I have time, I can run 10 or 20, then obviously those are moments of joy where I can kind of do it and enjoy it. Obviously you're tired, but I think you find the joy in it. So that's my thing. And I think nowadays in the gym, because you mentioned the gym, I'm trying to do more the joint activities. So I'm over 50 now. And so I think more about, okay, how do I give myself the muscle strength to be able to live to 60, 70, and 80 to still enjoy, right? To still be able to play with hopefully my grandchildren and maybe my great-grandchildren, right, to be able to enjoy with my wife, to right go on walks, to go play golf, to go on hikes. And so you have to actually be purposeful and think about what exercises you have to do to build the right muscles.
Right.
And that's kind of where when I go to the gym, it's not necessarily to go and run on the treadmill for hours. It's now more purposeful as far as, okay,
For functional strength.
functional strength, correct. So I do more functional training in that regard.
In terms of family, because like you said, you're hoping to play with your grandchildren one day.
Sure.
So how do you balance your progress along with your roles as a husband and a father?
Yeah. I would say, as I saw I think we all kind of grow up based upon the roles model we saw, right? My parents being immigrants and myself being an immigrant, we had to work. And so I didn't really get a chance to see my parents much as I grew up because they were constantly working. They had 2 jobs, 3 jobs. And then we focused on school and those activities. So with my kids, we and wife try to be a little more purposeful in making sure that I'm there. We're together. We kind of do both as parents, as a husband, but as a father. It's not easy, right? Because of work and travel and everything else. But this is where you need a strong partner. In the mornings, for example, I'll wake up at 6. I'll help prepare with my wife the kids' lunch, right? So that way they know that we always care for them. We provide that. We make sure we pack them a warm lunch of rice,
Healthy food,
a container of vegetables, and a container of protein, along with a snack of fruit. All right. So that way they see that. We see them off in the morning type of situation. And then I try to help with homework if I can. We try to have dinner together. And then I'll go back to work, right, online, or have meetings, or just check on emails. So I try to make sure that in the morning I set time for them as far as that engagement, and then in the evening to always try to have dinner together. Unless I'm on travel course.
Yeah. Okay, so I was actually going to ask, like, what else can husbands do to like help the wives who are struggling to be healthier, and at the same time do what they have to do, as mothers?
I guess my contribution is always the dishes. So she's a wonderful cook and chef. Although our kids have started to learn to cook, I'll cook a few dishes here and there, but nowhere close to what she can do. And so I'll typically always do the dishes. We've also made sure that the kids have certain chores, taking out the trash, cleaning the cat litter, those type of things. So we all try to do things together as a family. So that way we all have our share of those activities.
Right.
Putting away the dishes, drying it, and all that stuff. So we kind of do things together.
Of the teamwork. Okay. So apart from that, what health advice do you give to your children? How do you encourage them to be more active?
I think our kids see our behavior. So if our kids, we've always given the supplements. So they've always known the supplements. Of course, now with our thought on the gut microbiome, and they're also very conscious. They also know, okay, they start eating with their vegetables. So when we're out, right, they'll start eating their broccoli first, and then they'll eat their chicken, steamed chicken,
protein,
the protein or whatever, and then they'll have the rice. So the kids have sort of also done the same thing. Even in the morning, if for breakfast, we either make them the smoothie with the protein, probiotic, and fiber, or sometimes they like to alternate. And so, like, for example, this morning they cooked for themselves an egg omelet, avocado with a little salt and pepper. So again, a very nutritious breakfast. So they kind of start off the day, but they did it themselves.
Right.
But
I love that you encourage them to do it themselves, because then you teach them this is you taking charge of your health. You don't wait for your mom to cook a healthy meal for you.
No. They're pretty good. When they come home from school in the afternoon, they make their own meals and snacks. And so we try not to do that.
Okay. Now, a lot of people, when they start on their health journey, they maybe follow like a fitness guru or like some health channel. So what were your references?
From a workout perspective, I watched the YouTube videos as we're stuck at home, especially during the pandemic. So I watched some of the YouTubers as far as their, 15-minute workout. So I like that because I don't think you have to do it for hours. So you watch the videos and then you watch maybe a 10-minute clip and you do one routine and then maybe you watch another 10-minute clip. And so during the pandemic, I would watch those videos. And if you do, again, like 2 or 3 sets, that's good, right? When you do these 10-minute, you go, oh, it's just 10 minutes.
Right.
It's brutal. And then when you do it, right, 3 times in a row, it's super brutal. But you build up the endurance and you get used to it. So that was number 1. And then 2, from a nutrition standpoint, again, I watched some of the YouTubers just to understand as I was learning about 16-8, fasting, how should I break my fast, the diet, and then incorporating finally, of course, with the scientists at Amway and kind of thinking about, they were the ones that told me or shared with me the data that said if you kind of sequence it, as I mentioned, if you have protein first, you can blunt your sugar spike by 78%. If you have vegetable first versus rice, you can actually blunt your sugar spike dramatically. I mean, the effect is huge. Yeah. And each step, they showed the data that showed, instead of a sugar spike like that, literally you had a sugar spike like that. Or if you walked after having a chocolate cake or a coconut cake or whatever it is, your sugar spike went from that down to that.
But even without like cake, for example, I mean, there are people out there who are scared to even take fruits because they're so scared of that sugar spike, so something like this that would help cut the blunt.
I mean, fruit is fantastic, but as you mentioned, right, fruit has sugar. And if you don't know how your body will process it, I think it's going to turn the fruit into the fruit sugar and create a sugar spike as well.
Right.
So I always say if you can eat fruit, not at the beginning, but at the end, and then of course walk.
Now I wanted to ask, what have you noticed about your body since you started working out? We know you were heavy before. What were you at your heaviest?
Yeah, I was 85 kg at my heaviest. And people gonna go, okay, you must have been really, really lazy. You probably, right? And all these things. It's unfair. But, at that time, actually, I would work out. I ran, I could run on a treadmill for about 1 to 2 hours. So I would run or go outside and run. I would be taking my supplements. So I thought, okay, I'm doing the right things.
Right.
Or then I would try to control what I was eating. You have to understand how your body processes food. Right. That was the revelation in my mind. And so it wasn't that I changed. It wasn't like, okay, Mike, you must be now going to the gym 3 times as often. No. Or, you must be restricting your calories and you're only kind of at 1,000 calories or 1,500 calories a day. No, none of those things. It was, again, changing the sequence, incorporating the intermittent fasting, incorporating the sequence of food eating, and then trying to optimize my gut so that way my gut could then do a better job processing the food and the nutrition.
Would you say that's one of the biggest mistakes people make, is that they don't look at what's right for them as opposed to, just they do everything and they think they're doing the right thing, but they're not.
No, I would always advise people, talk to a nutritionist because, right, we don't know what we don't know. Talk to a doctor in case, right, you have some other medical issues that the doctor should be aware of as you try these different things. So always consult with your doctor, consult with a nutritionist, consult with a trainer as far as when you start working out, like we talked about earlier, functional training. Exactly. I don't know how to do the right functional training. He or she will guide you and say, okay, hey, well, you want to work on your hips, you want to work on your ankle. We noticed that your knees. So these are kind of where, okay, we need to work on your glutes more. So again, these are advice that you should have. And of course, you can watch the YouTube, but you should also, at least try to find one time to consult. And then afterwards, you can kind of do your own, but have the advice and then supplements, as I mentioned, right? The right diet, the right supplementation, all these things will help you, and they helped me.
So another thing is, I heard a little bird told me that your T-shirt size has since changed. Can you tell us more on that?
Yeah, I think at 85 kg, right, I would automatically either get a extra large or a large. I try to kind of get into a large. Most of the times now, I'm somewhere between either small or medium, depending on the cut and everything else. And even all my suits, right? It used to be like a 44.
You need a new wardrobe now.
Yeah, I definitely had to get a new wardrobe or have everything altered. So right nowadays, I went from like a 44 down to like a 38 as far as my suits. And then so all my clothes changed. But I don't want people to obsess on that part. That was never the goal to say, okay, I want to fit into a small size T-shirt or medium size T-shirt, or I want to kind of have
It
this
wasn't aesthetic,
build.
it was health.
It was just sort of the health, and I think then the byproduct was those things, and then of course you feel great about it and you feel more confident. But I think the first thing is, right, don't go into it with, because again, if my goal was to go down to a medium, then I say, okay, I'm done, or a small or whatever, then I'm done. Then you have nothing else. But if you made your goal kind of how do you live healthier long term, then it's just there is no sort of feeling of, okay, I get to quit now. And then you kind of then get sad because then you snap back. And then you go, okay, wow, no, I gained back the 5 kg. I gained back the 10 kg. Oh my gosh, now I'm a large again.
When you talk about, like, it's not just about living longer, but those years have to be healthy years as well. Now, what advice would you have given your younger self?
Oh my gosh. I think it depends on where you are. I would always say when you're in your teens, listen to your parents more often, respect your parents more often, but also have the idea of how do you respectfully learn how to explore your life, your environment. Same thing in your 20s. I always say, do the internships, do the work, education, work experience are huge. I think when you're in your 20s, that's kind of what life is about, making sure you get the most of it at that critical point, and then start to incorporate, okay, how do I find joy in terms of travel, in terms of, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, let me go all the way there. It can be, right, traveling out to the local park, traveling out with friends, enjoy your time. That would be kind of what I would advise myself in my 20s and 30s. And then incorporating, again, I wish what I knew about diet and just how to control my health throughout, right? I wish I had the same experience that hopefully my kids are kind of understanding about their own health. I wish I had that, so then I could invest in my health. We all think about this because when we work, our goal and purpose is obviously to retire. I'm sorry to say, right? I'm sure my people have different aspirations, but at the end of the day, a lot of us, our goal is
still need to retire,
right? And no matter what, you will have to retire, right? And so as part of that, we then say, okay, how do I set aside money, right? EPF, let me set aside money here. Let me have a bank account here. Let me invest maybe a little bit in, diversify. Let me do my own thing and let me invest. But in order to invest, we then have to make sacrifices and we end up, right, cutting back on things. So typically from a financial perspective, when we invest in the future, it means we sacrifice today, right? I can't have that outfit. I can't buy that. I can't go on this trip. I can't go out to, to this restaurant, because you have to save the money to have it down the road. Health is a very different investment. So, I talked about trying to live longer and healthier into your 70s, 80s, and 90s. Health is the total opposite, where if you were to go to the gym today in your 20s, it's not like, okay, I'm going to see it in my 80s. You see it today, right? Immediately, right? You see it in the next few weeks and few days. And then on top of that, you see that in your 80s. So it's a little one of these investments where everything you do in your health, in terms of diet, in terms of nutrition, and everything you do as far as going out to the gym and taking care of your muscles and everything else, it pays immediately and then every day after. And that's kind of that difference if you kind of think about financial investment versus investment in our own health and well-being.
So all the best for your future health and well-being. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.